In this short video, I'm going to show you how to use the Text in a Box tool. This tool can be used in either the 2D view or the 3D view, but make sure that if you're in your 3D view, you've got your vectors turned on. The Text in a Box tool can be found under your Draw Text options. At the very top of this dialog, you'll see that you have the option to create just text or text in a box. Obviously, we're going to choose text in a box. Now, in order to use this tool, we're going to need to select a vector or a closed vector bounding box. But if you don't have one to select, you'll see the software automatically selects the bounds of your job. In my case, I want to select this inside vector. The next option is to actually type in my text. So in this box, I'm going to type in the text I'd like to have constrained to this vector. And there we have it. I can choose to use the larger text editor if I would like to. I'm going to cancel that for now. I can choose from the two different font types that we support, TrueType fonts and single line fonts. I can choose any of the fonts that I have installed on my computer. I can choose bold, or I can choose italic, or I can choose both if I'd like. I can choose my text alignment. Right now it's set to the center, but I can also go left, or I can go right. Let's go back to the center for now. I can choose my bounding box dimension. So at first, it will pick up the dimensions from my chosen vector, which happens to be 4.4 by 2.5. I can change that though if I'd like to. Let's make the width of this 10 instead. And you'll see that the bounding box has now been stretched out to that 10 inches mark. So we're not limited to just the size of that original vector. So let's go back to 4.4. I can choose my margin size. Now the margin is the space that we put between your text and the bounding box. In this case, it's set to normal. We can switch to none. You'll see that we size this up until the text hits the edge of the box. And we can go wide if we'd like to, so our margin is quite wide, which can make our text a little bit smaller. Let's go back to normal for now. The next two options are vertical stretch and horizontal stretch. Now these will only be applied if we have room within the bounding box to support this. So if you don't see any change, the chances are pretty good that there's not enough space in the box for us to do that. So right now we'll look at the vertical stretch options. Right now it's set to none, but I can choose space lines to fit. So you can see that we've added some space between the lines of text. I can go stretch characters, and that'll stretch the characters up and down to fit with inside that bounding box. Let's go back to none for now. Now in my case, if I choose any of the horizontal stretch options, nothing is going to happen because my bounding box isn't quite big enough. So let's change this to be 10 inches so we can see the effects of this. So we drop down, we can stretch spaces. Now in this case, you won't see anything happen because I only have one space right now, but if I had more than one space, you would definitely see a change. Stretch the kerning. You'll see that we changed the kerning in between all of our characters. And we can go ahead and stretch our characters. Let's go back to none now and change this back to 4.4. And we'll choose to close this down. Now it's important to remember that we don't keep the association between the vector, the original vector bounding box, and your text. So if we want to, we can just select these two vectors and we'll delete them. And then if I select my text and go back into the Draw Text tool, you'll see that we're still keeping in mind that original bounding box, so we don't need to keep those vectors around if we don't want to. We just simply go ahead and close this down. Now I hope you have a better idea of how to use the Draw Text in a Box tool.